Hello, Zyy'nai of Planet Earth. My name is Zyy'nai. In this episode, we're going to be going over the peak pathway for the Zyy'nai. A peak pathway for any given mojo is all 8 of their powers being used as they were designed to be used for the greatest amount of productive harmony. As a Zyy'nai, we discussed already what your 4 powers are: Zyy'nai, V, Zyy'ai, but you also have 4 remaining powers of the psyche, which are unconscious. You can put these 4 remaining powers in ranking, and if you were to do so, then this ranking would be called what we call the consciousness ranking, which is the order of how easy it is for you to access them directly from your conscious mind. So you have Zyy'nai, V, and Zyy'ai. You already know that, but in your unconscious, you also have Zyy'ai. This is the strongest and the closest to the surface of your unconscious. So it's the next easy for you to connect with in a conscious way. Although it is still unconscious, it's easier for you to reach through your conscious powers. Then you have Ni, which is deeper still in your unconscious. Going deeper still than that would be Vi, and then finally we have Zhi. So that's the order of your consciousness peak pathway. Once again, Zyy'nai, V, Zyy'ai, Zai, Ni, Vi, Zhi. Now when you experience peak pathway, it's not going to have this technical this to that, A to B to C, one-step sequential order sort of quality to that. It's going to feel a bit like you're on a ride in your psyche that you experience through your whole body and your whole being throughout your life and every activity you do. The beginning of the consciousness peak pathway is called the charging up phase. And this is basically your Z. This is the power that's always there for you, and so you never actually have to kickstart it. You never have to boot up the Z. It's always going on. The Z is already booting up and it's always waiting for you to do something with that energy. We call this the charging up phase, giving you the energy to do what you need to do to continue on to the rest of your heroic storyline. Then you have the conscious accessing of Z, which is giving you major momentum. Then you have the conscious accessing of Nai, which gives you minor momentum. Then, as we go over to your modulation powers, you are doing what we call crossing the divide, which means you're going across to the other side of your psyche. And over on that side, then you have your modulation powers, V and Zyy'ai. So the Zyy'nai begin by engaging the system with logical decision-making. They gain insights into how the system works through speculation, perspective shifting, and they can proactively improve all that by kind of implementing, concrete, visceral experiences. And with heroic effort, they can also apply the personal values into what they do with their moral compass. When they get that far, at this point, they are opening the portal. And when you do this, then you're opening the portal to your unconscious, because Zai, which is the top power in your unconscious, responds to the special kind of Zai that you provide. So when you go from Z to Nai to V to Zai, then it creates a chain reaction that begins to awaken your unconscious genius. When that happens, then you'll begin to feel a swelling of energy, which is similar to the rising of energy that occurs in the charge-up phase, but now you're feeling your unconscious being given over to you. This is called the wave swell phase. And so this is your unconscious interfacing with your conscious powers, boosting them up. So you'll feel this boosting of energy. This is what we call the wave swell. And that comes from successfully doing your conscious powers in such a way that awakens your unconscious. When the unconscious awakens, then it'll tend to come with what we call the tidal wave, meaning the Zai and the Ni of your unconscious will come to you together as one thing. They'll come to you in a personified form, which we will shed some more light on in later episodes. But as energy, the Zai brings dispassion, calibration, principle understanding, situational logic, and this combines with the sixth sense, imminent potentiality, and idea juggling of Ni. So this will come to you as a being in your psyche. It'll come as a general sensation and as a reaction that your psyche has to what you're doing consciously. And as you do things consciously, then the Zai and Ni of your unconscious will react accordingly, as one sort of compound that we call the tidal wave. But these can also separate into distinct Zai and Ni for you to interact with, but it won't be as naturally differentiated as the conscious powers are. But when you go into the unconscious, then it's a bit more like you're kind of fumbling around in the dark for it, or it's a link handed to you from places unknown. And so they come to you in waves, which are these package deals. But after that, you could also unpack this energy into the Zai and Ni that it's composed of. So after the tidal wave, if you've done everything correctly from here, then after will come the coastal wave. This is the energy that's coming from your unconscious Vi and Zhi. This will flow naturally from the unconscious if the tidal wave has gone well. So it'll continue on and take the energy back over to your side through the Vi and Zhi of your unconscious, and it'll return to you to your native quadrant of Zhi. And from there, you're ready to start the cycle again. And this can be done if you peak properly. It's a bit like flexing muscle or going to the gym. And so after you peak, then you're going to have what is known as a refractory period, where you kind of just pulled off a super heroic move. And so there's going to be a point where you kind of done it and you just put in a great heroic effort. So there is kind of a refractory period where you kind of have to begin to gain your energy again. After you go through your peak pathway of Zyy'nai, Vi, Zhai, Zai, Ni, Vi, and Zhi, then there's going to be kind of an, I did it. But don't worry, because the refractory period is just temporary, and you will immediately begin to start building up energy again as you once again go into your charge up phase, which begins the whole process again. Now you have all of your powers interacting with you all the time. And so it's a question of how you access them and how you understand what's going on. It's not always going to have to be a strict Zyy'nai, Vi, and Zhai, and so forth all the time as you do things. You're having all of your powers work simultaneously, and you may suddenly need to do something like study for an exam, or maybe drive a car or something, or race somebody. Something that will kind of cause you to have to like do your powers outside of your out of the order of your P pathway. You know, you'll have to maybe go right to Nai, go right to V or something. So you can actually get to your powers in any order. However, going in certain orders is going to make for the greatest gaining of energy to help you bring into any activity or maneuver you do. So you can technically do your peak pathway or access your powers in any order. So the two main peak pathways are the consciousness peak pathway, which we talked about, Zyy'nai, Vi, Zhai, Zai, Ni, Vi, Zhi. And you can do that in that order. And when you do it in that order, then it'll be easier for you to get to your powers that might be further away. It might be a bit of modulation, but you are starting with your momentum powers. So you're bringing momentum, energy, and understanding into the entire cycle. However, the consciousness hierarchy is not actually the hierarchy that is of most influence in your psyche. The hierarchy that is the most influence in your psyche is actually the energetic hierarchy. This has to do with which channels are taking precedence in your psyche. See, just because Vi and Zhai are conscious, and for example Zai and Ni are not conscious, that doesn't mean that Vi and Zhai actually has more influence, more precedence in your psyche. Because unconscious Zai and Ni, these are actually unconscious momentum powers. And so together, the Z and the Nai, the Zez channel, the Nai and the Ni, the Nez channel, these channels together have the most energetic priority in your psyche. So as a Zyy'nai, your top energetic power is of course going to be your source power of Z. But your second energetic power is actually going to be Zai, even though it's unconscious. It has nearly equal influence to you as Z does. The only reason that Zai does not have equal influence as your Z is because Z is conscious and Zai is not. Therefore, it is Z that actually leads this dance. Continuing on, your next energetic power would be your Nai, because after the Zez channel, it is the Nez or interpretive channel that takes precedence next. So it's the Nez channel is the next important channel for you. So this means your next energetic ranking is going to be Nai, and then it's going to be Ni. Then continuing on will be Vi, and then Vi, and then Zai, and then Zhi. So let's do that all together. Z, Zai, Nai, Ni, Vi, Vi, Zhai, Zhi. That is fun to do. As a Zyy'nai, you can access all of your powers to do all kinds of different things, but you'll always be working with the consciousness hierarchy rank of how much you can directly go for your powers, and the energetic ranking when it comes to the level of influence that certain powers have based on which channel the power's in. So the range can be incredible, but you're working with this design. And so the more you're able to understand this design, the more you'll be able to access all of your powers and do incredible things that they can do once you know how they can work. So know yourself, grow yourself, and always save the world. And peak pathways is the main way that you'll be able to know yourself, grow yourself, and get the energy that you need to pull off the magic powers that you're going to need to save the world.